While we're all busy with our day-to-day lives, getting to work, paying the bills, you know how it is, Mexico's financial authorities are always working in the background. And believe me, the moves they make, whether they seem big or small, they have a real impact on our money, our future, and the whole economy. So that really gets us to the big question for today. What exactly went down last week that you need to know about? We're going to break down the key updates from the SOT and other agencies, and most importantly, connect the dots straight back to you.
So here's our game plan. We're going to kick things off with taxes, looking at what's new for us as individuals and for big companies. Then we'll dive into how the government is fighting illegal money flows. After that, we'll get super personal. We're talking your retirement savings and even the price of gas. And finally, we'll tie it all together. It might sound like a lot, but I promise you'll see how it all connects.
Okay, let's jump right into our first topic. Mexico's tax authority, the SAT, is kind of playing on two fields at the same time. On one hand, they're trying to make life easier for you and me, the individual taxpayers. And on the other, they're making sure that the big corporations are paying what they should. First up, if you're already starting to stress about tax season, well, there's actually some good news. That April 30th deadline is getting closer, and the SA just rolled out its new annual declaration simulator. The whole point of this thing is to make the process way smoother and a lot less confusing. And here's what's actually really helpful about these updates. The tool opens up with your info already filled in, so most of the work is just verifying it's all correct. And check out that second step. You know how sometimes you have an invoice that should be a personal deduction, but it wasn't marked that way? Well, now you can easily fix that yourself. It's all about putting more control and clarity in your hands. And this slide? It perfectly shows the SAT's two-sided strategy. For us, we get these helpful digital tools. But for big business, the SAT is doing something different. It's publishing what it calls effective tax rates for 40 different industries. Think of it as a public report card. It lets big companies see how their tax payments compare to their competitors, kind of nudging them to pay their fair share voluntarily. Okay, let's shift gears a little, because the SAT's job isn't just about collecting taxes. A huge part of their role is to protect our entire financial system from being used for shady purposes. Now, to really get what they're doing, we need to understand this key term: vulnerable activity. Basically, in legal speak, this is any economic activity that's at a higher risk of being used for money laundering. A perfect example? A charity that gets really big donations. The money is supposed to do good, of course, but without the right oversight, that kind of cash flow could be taken advantage of. So what's happening now is that the SAT is proactively training these charities, or donatarias, on how to spot and prevent money laundering. This isn't about punishment at all. It's about prevention. And this training is just the beginning of a much bigger program to do the same for all 17 legally defined vulnerable activities, making the whole system safer. All right, we've been talking big picture about the system, but let's bring it right back home. How are these government moves actually showing up in your wallet right now? And what do they mean for your savings down the road? Let's start by looking at your future. Your retirement fund, your Afore, isn't just sitting in a vault somewhere. It's being actively invested. The latest numbers are out, and this slide shows the performance specifically for younger workers, those born after 2000. It's a great time to ask yourself, hey, do I actually know how my own Afore is doing? So let's break this down real quick. As you can see, there's a pretty wide range here. ProFuturo is leading the pack with a 9.43% net return. The average across all the Afores is 8.34%, and then you have Copel on the lower end at 7.51%. This is super useful data because you can pull out your own retirement statement and see how it stacks up. Right, so that's the long-term game. But what about the money you're spending today, like right now on everyday stuff? Well, for the week of March 14th to the 20th, the government put a 35.21% fiscal stimulus on the price of diesel. What does that mean? It's basically a subsidy to lower the price you pay at the pump. And this really matters to all of us because diesel is what fuels the trucks that move, well, everything. Food, supplies, all of it. So a lower diesel price helps keep a lid on inflation for everyone. But here is where things get really fascinating. For regular gasoline, the stimulus for most of the country was zero, zilch. But look at this comparison. In the border city of San Luis Rio Colorado, Sonora, the government was kicking in a stimulus of over 3 pesos per liter. This is a super targeted policy. It's all about keeping gas prices there competitive with what people would pay just by crossing the border into the U.S.
So we've looked at tax tools, anti-money laundering training, retirement funds, and even fuel subsidies. Let's zoom out one last time and tie all these different threads together to see the big picture.
So, what are the key things to take away from this week's financial news? First, new tech is making tax season simpler for us. Second, big companies are getting a clear message to pay their fair share, but through transparency, not just force. Third, the government is getting proactive to protect our financial system. And finally, these policies are directly hitting our wallets, from our long-term savings all the way to our daily expenses.
And that really brings us to our final thought. We've seen a strategy that gives tools to individuals, puts public pressure on corporations, shores up the financial system, and uses very specific subsidies. So the big question we're left with is this: are all these individual pieces adding up to the right overall strategy for Mexico's economy? Definitely something to think about.